Hi, it's Joy from the Red Femme Rebellion, and my short from today is an absolutely beautiful view of the sunset from the top of the mountain. I was working and I ran outside so I could get it to show you because it's just so beautiful. And I'm still working on the conversations I need to have before I can post episode 16. And I decided to just live with it being out of order. My OCD! But it's okay. I also decided to just continue on with the story because this is where it really starts to pick up. And to what really led me to where I am right now. So, a week after I had been assaulted on that date and had been what I believe to be medically mistreated or neglected in that situation, but I had been told about the rape crisis unit. A week after that, I believe to the day, my best friend calls me, and it's really early in the morning, and there's a couple things that are wrong, and I know before I even pick up the phone that something's wrong. It's that it's early in the morning, and my best friend S is a stay up late, sleep in late. So that was really weird. That she was calling me at all was a huge red flag because she doesn't like being on the phone. If she can text it, she will. So I knew when the phone call was coming in that it was something important or urgent. And I picked up, and immediately I could hear that she was like breathing shakily. She had been to North Carolina, which was about, I believe, a 10-hour drive away, to visit family, one of her cousins. So she's from one of those families where like generations are born all at the same time. And so there's a lot of other cousins in that family that are around the same age as her. And one of them lives in North Carolina, and she had a Halloween party with her husband who was in the Army. And so this is the next morning that she's calling me, and I asked her what was wrong. And she said, Zach raped me. Zach is her cousin's husband. Her cousin's husband. So that was a huge whoa. Because I always thought the guy was a creep. We both did. But he was, her family. Like, married in. He married into the family. Married in one of her closest cousins. And we just accepted him and his creepy weirdness. And she tells me about what happened. And I want to preface this, and I should have prefaced this before I started talking. I have S's full permission and encouragement to talk about what happened. I was messaging her the other day because I had filmed that video that I haven't posted yet. And I told her, wow, it was so hard to tell a camera what happened to me. So hard to face the reality of what that was and say it and describe it out loud. Then when I think about her and what she's been through these past couple years and how many times she's had to tell that story and to so many different people and how many people gave her hell for telling that story, I'm just amazed by how strong she is. I admire her so much because it's exhausting. You could tell the story 10 times and it still exhausts you every time you talk about it. So, she had been assaulted by this man repeatedly during the night after we believe that her own husband, who was there with her, had been manipulated, coerced out of the party to leave the house, which was so unlike any of the party formats that have ever happened there before, that we can't help but wonder if this manipulative, sadistic piece of human garbage had planned ahead of time to attack my friend and had actually gotten his friends to help him isolate her and leave her alone because she was intoxicated so that he could take advantage of her. I've heard a lot crazier sounding things that turned out to be true, so I'm gonna go with my gut and say wouldn't be shocked at all if that's what happened. So she's describing to me what happened. I'm 10 hours away, but ding ding ding, I know just what to do, because even though I wasn't strong enough to reach out and call her or call anyone when I got kind of discouraged by that doctor, I didn't have to be discouraging. I could encourage her and say, oh, there's a rape crisis unit. I know where to go. Just get back here. Come back. Like, screw them. Like, get the hell out of Dodge and come back. And that's just not how trauma works all the time. A lot of people still are under the misconception that there is fight or flight, when really there is fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or fold. So a lot of people know fight or flight, so you're either going to duke it out or run away. There's also freeze, so you just freeze. So what happened to me when I talked about my assault, that I just got stuck on this repeat loop of I was leaving, I was supposed to be leaving. That was my freeze, my tape player, just continuing to skip. There's fawn, which is what I think a lot of women, people in general, but especially women, they experience and don't understand that that's what they're experiencing. That smiling, laughing, trying to appease the person who's scaring you is a survival technique that we've learned. That a lot of aggressive men stop being so aggressive when you fawn. And I think a lot of women especially, their brain goes into survival mode and starts to fawn. And later, when they look back on the situation, they get really upset with themselves or frustrated, or they buy into this victim blaming bullshit that it's their fault because they think, well, I encouraged him. Like, I smiled, I laughed, I whatever. It doesn't matter what your face is doing. It doesn't matter what he's perceiving off of you if you are clearly not into it, especially if you're still saying no. I am so tired of this completely false narrative, this blatant lie that consent is such a tricky subject area. It's so hard. It's not. Enthusiastic, freely giving consent is clear when it happens. If there's any ambiguity, then you're not giving consent. So fawn is really tricky, and it's a source, I think, of a lot of self-victim blaming and a lot of that trauma, shame repeating, because so many of us in other situations, it does work. It has worked many times in these micro and sometimes bigger situations, and this time it didn't. But it is a survival. It is a setting, a survival setting that your brain goes to that is kind of like an autopilot. And the last one, so we have fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And the last one is fold, which is to just like give in, because giving in or accepting what's happening, or what appears to be accepting what's happening, when you know that the alternative is pain, suffering, possibly death, it's survival to fold. It's smart to fold. Your brain is making a decision to keep you alive, to keep you safe. But it's not a decision made freely. it's not a decision that you would have made yourself if you were comfortable, if you weren't being assaulted and traumatized in that moment. So that's why we added on to the list of the F's of that instinctual response, because this is part of the pattern of survival where abusers and predators exploit the human condition to survive, the human condition to minimize bad situations, to try to create the best odds. They take advantage of that. And in my friend's situation, after it happened, she was very much so frozen. She was in strong denial, and even though she wasn't denying what happened, it was denial over that anyone else would validate her or believe her, or that it was real enough to warrant an absolute freaking meltdown if that's what she wanted to do. It was, oh my God. She knew on some level, without being able to process, that this was going to ruin her family, that this man assaulting her was going to cause problems. She knew that her husband was a piece of trash and wouldn't care really what happened. And to her, he had left her. So how could she trust him? And that's, again, a trauma loop of, she's right. But to her, when it was happening repeatedly that night, she kept expecting her husband to come back. She thought he was in the house. She thought he was any moment going to come back through that door and stop this nightmare. And he had left. He had left the house with this dude's friends to go drinking at a bar. And so, in part, it was his fault. Like, it was, in part, the safeguard for her male partner, her husband, was not there. And that is the primary reason this happened to her. If he had been there, it never would have happened. This rapist crawled into bed with her. If her husband had been sleeping next to her, she wouldn't have been attacked. And because she knows her husband, she knew his response was going to be immature, and it wasn't going to be about her, it was going to be about him, which it ended up being, but we'll get to that. So I'm encouraging her and saying, you need to come back. You need to get the hell away from there, come back. And for her, it was, no, shut down and just get survival of how do I get out of the situation the fastest, the easiest. She knew that if she went back and said, that guy just raped me, and blew it up that way, which would be completely valid and the appropriate and an appropriate response, that it would have been hours and hours before she would have left. Whereas they were scheduled, planning to leave like an hour or two after I talked to her. So she said, I just want to leave. I just want to get out of here. I don't want to make it any harder. I just need to leave. And I said, all right, I completely understand that. Because I really do. I mean, if none of those people, if she didn't believe, if she had no reason to believe, and she was correct in thinking that no one in that house, including her husband, was going to support her and care for her once she disclosed, then it is completely understandable why she didn't want to do it. So I encouraged her to just come back as soon as she could, and we would take the next steps, basically. So I want to get to the emergency room before I get off this video. So she came back, and we went to the emergency room that the doctor had told me about for this SAFE kit, the SAFE exam. And SAFE is a sexual assault forensic exam. So you're getting a sexual assault forensic exam kit, you're getting a SAFE nurse, a sexual assault forensic exam nurse, or usually a team of nurses who do this. And that's what we went to get for her, even though she had showered. And that's something that's, how do you not shower? I think the derision and the anger that so many women face when they shower after they've been raped is one of my biggest pet peeves about rape culture. And the problem with prioritizing rape as primarily like a criminal issue, that the biggest problem, the biggest priority here is not that victim finding some source of comfort. If it needs to happen, if she needs to shower, she needs to shower, okay? And showering doesn't necessarily get rid of all the evidence. My best friend, the one we're talking about right now, showered like 4 times between when she was assaulted and when she got the kit done, and they still found evidence. So I understand the push to say don't shower, preserve as much evidence as possible, and if that's possible, absolutely, I think that's the way to go. But the truth is, for a lot of women, I would say most women, that would be an impossible ask. An impossible one. I know it would have been for me all the times that it happened to me. So she had showered, but we went anyway, because I'm thinking, well, he assaulted you badly. There's other evidence. Even if you wash away DNA, there's physical trauma, bleeding, bruising, tearing. There's, other avenues here, because you're telling the truth. So we're just going to go with what we have. We're going to do the best with what we have. Whatever is your best is okay. And that needs to be the narrative of whatever your best is. That's what we're going to work with. So we go to this emergency room, and I help her tell the staff that we're there requesting a safe exam for her. And they say okay, and they check her in, and then we wait in the waiting room for the intake nurse to call her back for the vitals. And we go to the doctor, and a lot of the times they take your vitals, your blood pressure, your temperature, your height and weight, or whatever, and then they kick you back out to the waiting room to wait. And I was with her while she was getting these vitals taken, and the intake nurse looks at her and says, "Are you okay to go back and wait in the waiting room?" And us and I kind of look at each other. It's a weird question. Like, yeah, we just came from there. Like, yeah, we'll go wait. But about 45 seconds later, when we walk out, it was like her S's butt hadn't hit the seat before she looks at me and she's like, "I can't do this. I need to leave." So that's a huge red flag for me, because what that told me, and in the instant, in that moment, it connected of why that nurse had asked that question. Because people leave. They get their vitals taken, they go and sit down alone and realize what they're about to do, and they panic and they leave, because it's a very scary, intimidating process, especially if you're alone and you have no idea what to expect. No victim advocate out in the waiting room. Oh no, you don't get that till they pull you back behind the scenes. And I remember thinking, why did you even offer? If you know that people leave when you send them back out to the waiting room, why would you even let them go back out? Don't ask them if they're going to be okay, because she thought she was going to be okay. She said yes. She looked at me like, that's a weird question. And we thought it was weird. But it was within a minute, that flip of going back out in the waiting room, and it sunk in, and she's ready to go. So huge red flag, safeguarding failure right there, which is, if you know people leave, stop letting them go back to the waiting room. Take them back to a safe room. Say, we're gonna put you in an exam room. We're gonna send a victim advocate to wait with you so you're not alone. We're gonna make sure you're safe. That's what you do. You don't say, go wait, and then when you go back out and call them and they're gone, oops, so sad, too bad. We knew that there was a 50% chance or whatever of that happening. And so S looks at me and says, I can't do this. I have to go. I can't do this. I can't do this to my family. I can't do this. I'm out. And I remember this hitch inside of me of no, you don't have a choice. And I didn't say that, because it was just this, what do you mean you're going to leave? How can you leave? You have to do this. And it was this moment, a huge moment for me with victim advocacy, looking back, of realizing I cannot make her do anything. She's already been made to do enough that she doesn't want to do. But I think I exercised my best friend privilege in a way that I probably would still today. I might would have, in the same situation, I would say it the same way. I would say the same thing in a different way. And what I said to her was, well, what are you going to do? You're going to sit down at Thanksgiving dinner with this guy? You're going to eat turkey next to him and pretend it's fine? Like, you can't do that. You can't live like that. You shouldn't have to live like that. And it was it was harsh. But it was the truth. And it was what she needed to hear. And looking back, she says, like, that is what I needed to hear. Because the truth is, what he did is not going to go away just because he's counting on you to expect that you pretend it's going away. It's not going away. What he did is never going to go away. And it's time to show up for you. And I would have said that in a much more trauma-informed way of... And now, knowing what I know about safe exams and the criminal justice system, I don't even like calling it that. I call it the legal system because there's no justice. Knowing what I know, I have a lot more knowledge to talk to somebody and explain the positives and the negatives of getting an exam. The fact that you can get a safe kit done and you don't have to report. You don't have to tell anyone what happened to you or the police. You don't have to tell the police. You can tell these nurses and have doctor-patient confidentiality. You can get the kit done and sit on it, but at least it's done. It's there for you to choose if you want. And having it and choosing not to have it is a completely different situation than regretting never getting it done. And I would be able to explain that, and I would be able to say, you know, a lot of survivors feel this way, that just if we ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, then life can go on, but that's just not the truth of what happens. And so in that moment, not having the knowledge or experience I had, I was just like, what are you gonna do? Have dinner, have Thanksgiving dinner, have holidays with this guy? That's crazy, you know? But it was the message that she needed to hear, and she's like, you're right. I can't pretend that this didn't happen. And she decided to stay for the exam. So this video is plenty long enough. I'm sure it's going to take me 10 hours to upload. But next time I'll get into what happened when we got back through to the back. Is actually saw the safe exam and safe nurses and everything, because it just gets even more wild from here. So thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll be talking to you later today.